In this video, I'm going to be guiding you through Chapter 11, the mixed economy. Firstly, we need to define the public sector, which consists of organizations which are owned and controlled by the government. Its aim is to provide services to the public and improve general welfare. The private sector, however, consists of businesses that are owned and controlled by private individuals or groups of investors, and its aim is to survive and to maximize profit. And then we have the mixed economy, which is a system that combines both the private and public sector to allocate resources to the economy. The decisions on what to produce, how to produce, and for who for are made by individuals, businesses, and also the government. So in the case for the public sector, the government needs to decide what to produce based on the needs of society. The government gets their funds through taxation, and they provide goods for everyone. Some examples include hospitals, schools, infrastructure such as roads and sewage control, and public goods. And in the case for the private sector, private businesses will only allocate resources entirely on consumer demand, as consumers are the ones that are willing and able to pay for these goods and services. Moreover, the private sector is able to find the most cost-effective method in order to produce the good. Some examples of private sector businesses are Apple, Sony, Hermes, McDonald's, Ruby Tuesdays, and many, many more. So moving on to the types of economies. First up, we have the market economy. And this economy, the majority of goods are provided by the private sector. Demand and supply determines the allocation of its resources. Next, we have the command economy, which relies entirely on the government. So they are the ones that decide what to produce, how to produce it, and who for. And lastly, which is the majority of the countries in the world today, the mixed economy, which relies on both public and private sector to provide goods and services for the entire economy. In a mixed economy, both the government and the private businesses will be asking the following three questions: what to produce, how to produce, and for who. In the case for what to produce, societies have to choose what goods and services they will create. As all resources are finite, not everything can be produced. Therefore, in a mixed economy, choices of what to produce must be made, dependent on the consumer demand or the government priorities. In the case for how to produce, these are methods used to manufacture goods and services. Firms and governments will need to choose the most efficient combination of resources, and firms and governments will need to make decisions between using labor-intensive or capital-intensive production techniques. And lastly, for whom to produce for. This question focuses on the distribution of who gets the products or services. Society must decide who will receive and consume these products. For instance, the government will need to decide who is allowed to use the public facilities depending on the individual circumstances. And for private businesses, it's just whoever is willing and able to pay. So now we look at market failure. This is when the free market fails to allocate resources efficiently. This leads to a loss of economic and social welfare. Now, to simplify this explanation, if things were left to the free market, society will be significantly worse off. Let me show you. First of all, we have externalities. Externalities are spillover effects that are experienced by third parties. This could be negative or even positive. As everyone in the free market only cares about themselves, the external impacts on society are more often ignored. For example, the overproduction of chemicals. As the chemical plant is making profit, the spillover effect of pollution is ignored. People will drink alcohol as it makes them feel good. So more often than not, society will overconsume this product. But the spillover effects of this is bar fights, road accidents, and antisocial behavior. And in the case of underproduction, firms will underproduce vaccines, which are good for society. Not only the vaccine protects the individual, it also protects everyone else. And lastly, the underconsumption of gym usage, as people going to the gym will be generally healthier, and the benefits of the gym for other people or society is that they are more productive, they get sick less, and have a significantly increased mental well-being. Missing markets are a market failure, as the free market entirely fails to provide this particular good. Some examples include street lighting, national defense, sewage control, and so on and so forth. This is because private businesses cannot easily charge consumers for them, and therefore they will not make a profit. Now, picture this. You are the CEO of street lighting. How are you going to charge individuals that consume the light coming from your streetlights? And because of this, private businesses do not combine their scarce resources if they can't make a profit. And we all know that street lighting is very beneficial for the entire economy. The next point is the lack of information. This is when there is imperfect information, when there's one party that knows more information than the other party. This means that consumers or producers will be making poor economic decisions, leading to a misallocation of resources. Now, let me give you an example. A customer wants to buy a used car. The car salesman tells the customer that it is in pristine condition, the engine runs smoothly, the tires are perfect, the brakes work perfectly, and the car will cost $50,000. The customer makes the purchase, and not long after, the engine started to fail. And the reason for this is that the previous owner was driving the car recklessly, and the car salesman simply covered it up. You can see in this example here that the salesman had more information compared to the consumer, and therefore the consumer made a bad economic decision. Another example will be the insurance market, specifically the health insurance market, as customers will tell the insurers that they are fine, healthy, and they've got nothing wrong with them. So the insurer will take them on, and then 5 years later, long-term claims start to happen. Little did they know that the customer already had the problem in the first place. In this case, the insurer did not have all the information they required in order to make a good economic decision. Next, we have factor mobility. This is how easily factors of production, specifically labor, can move between different industries or even locations. This is because of a lack of skill, to the change of industries, or move to a new city for a new job. And because of this lack of immobility, this leaves valuable resources unemployed or wasted. In order to counteract the market failures, the government will need to intervene. They will need to provide essential services that the private sector will simply not supply, such as street lighting. They need to regulate harmful business practices, such as the overproduction of chemicals in chemical plants, and to promote and decrease the consumption of merit and demerit goods within the economy, such as alcohol and fresh fruits. In this section here, we look at public goods. So public goods are goods and services that is provided by the government, and the private market will not produce this because they cannot generate profit. Some examples, again, include schools, hospital, infrastructure, and sewage control. In the case for non-excludability and non-rivalry, non-excludable is when a public good is provided and it is impossible for any individual to stop anyone from using it. Examples such as public libraries, public hospitals, and parks are non-excludable. The next term is non-rivalrous or non-rivalry. This is when one person consuming the good does not reduce the amount available for anyone else. The examples of non-excludable goods that I gave just now, they were all rivalrous because every hospital will have limited amount of hospital beds. Although they are non-excludable, they are indeed rivalrous. Examples such as national defense are non-rivalrous, as everybody will get the protection of the local military or law enforcement. In the case for the free rider problem, this is when someone cannot be excluded from using public goods, without paying for them, such as national military or streetlights. And because private businesses will not supply them due to the difficulty profiting from the free rider problem. Some examples include street lighting, national defense, flood defense systems, international space stations, and many more. In a mixed economy, the role of the private sector in production is that they are purely driven by profit, meaning that they are willing to sell and produce whatever the customer is going to pay for. They are incentivized by lowering their production cost, which will maximize their financial returns. Moreover, they provide employment to a large portion of the workforce, providing incomes and increasing standards of living. In the case of the public sector and their role in production, the government will supply the essential public goods such as national defense, roads, and street lighting that the private businesses simply have no incentive to do. They ensure that the essential services such as education and healthcare is accessible by everyone, regardless of their personal wealth. And lastly, moving on to the relative importance in different economies regarding the public and private sector, in the US, the private sector dominates the production of most goods and services, and the government has a much smaller role. However, in Sweden or Cuba, the public sector has a much larger role and takes responsibility for major industries, housing, and extensive social welfare programs. I hope that helped. I hope you guys have a good day. Bye-bye.